Get cash for clothes at Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley. It's so easy. Recycle, earn cash, repeat. We pay cash on the spot for your trendy, gently used clothing, shoes, and accessories. At Plato's Closet, we buy all seasons, all day, every day. It's time to clean out your closet and cash in. Bring in your denim, graphic tees, athletic wear, shoes, handbags, and more. Sell your styles to Plato's Closet for cash. Then, do it again. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, actor and entrepreneur Christopher Knight talks about getting his role on the Brady Bunch.
I'm 8 years old. It's 68. We're down in San Diego having a great old time. And my dad had multiple trips down to Mexico buying these terracotta flower pots and tree pots and plant pots. We have our aunt, his sister, living in our house, taking care of our dog at the time. And my dad calls her to let her know that he's got to come home early to bring and drop off some pots. And she says, oh, Chris has a screen test for this thing called the Bradley Brood, and it wasn't even the Brady Bunch at the time.
Today on the show, actor and entrepreneur Christopher Knight talks about how he got his job on the Brady Bunch and the little things in life. Stay close.
Hey, it's Christopher Knight, and you're listening to Storyworthy. What, Josh? Not about Josh. He's not swell.
Today I'm here with a really great guy, and I'm just so excited to meet him because I feel like, see, he's been in my life my whole life. He doesn't know me. He just met me. But boy, oh boy, I've known this guy forever. He is actor Christopher Knight. He's also an entrepreneur. And if you look at ChristopherKnightBrands.com, you'll see how much stuff he's doing. Holy cow. You are so busy. And today, Christopher Knight brings forth the topic, it's the little things. And I think that is a great theme overall, Chris, don't you?
Yeah. I look back at this little thing in particular and realize how the die's cast, and with a little thing, and I have a very very funny story about how, in my case, that is very clear. Absolutely clear. And that's something that, just happenstance. And there's a lesson in that, I guess,
Okay. It's the little things.
I have a question right off the bat. Cults, that's a heavy hitting subject. Do you suspect somebody telling a story about cults would ever tell the story while they're in a cult? No, right? Because it's not a cult when they're in it.
I don't think so. Right. I don't think so. Because when they're in it, they think that everybody else, is, kind of crazy, and they're the stable one.
They have a group of like-minded friends that they hang out with similar principles and objectives, I guess.
And they give them all their money. But other than that, it's exactly the same as a group of friends,
They need a little help.
It's exactly the same. Now, I don't serve my guests Kool-Aid, but if you're in a cult, you might get that. I don't know. That's kind of funny that the whole cult thing was, I guess it's still popular, as it were, but it seemed like in the 70s, cults were so in, didn't it?
No, not. I think they're more popular than ever today. I think that but the reality is, I think that when you were younger, maybe, which is the 70s, I'm assuming, you're more prone. You haven't sort of formed completely, and you're looking for something to help form you, and you're open perhaps more to things you're sensitive to.
For sure. And even now there's Scientology. There's Scientology all over Los Angeles, and there's also QAnon all over our country. So you're right, there are cults. I guess I'm just thinking, in the 70s, it seemed like It was like the Moonies.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I guess Jim Jones was. He started in the 70s, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I have a feeling that it was a passage of time where you were more aware of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can. They're everywhere today.
Yeah, you can't swing a dead cat in this town without hitting,
I mean, frankly, Facebook gives the ability to every individual to become their own cult. A cult without a following.
Do you mean just in terms of how much people go on the site or how much time they spend there?
Yes, I mean how it mesmerizes the individual and how it becomes important for you to have followers. Mm-hmm. So everybody's a cult leader. I mean, in a small way. And I just sometimes wonder about. You just take the idea of the occupation of influencers.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's an occupation. Thing. It's crazy. So is that something that you aim for? Or that you just stumble upon? I mean, is there a school to become an influencer? Just a natural born sales talent?
Well, there is social media like in college now. I think you can take classes in social media. And so in that respect, I think it would be, a skill to learn. But I think before you get to college, kids are influencers and they're 10 and they're 12. You know what I mean?
Right, but the sheer death of your ability to influence the way that you're expecting to is to become an influencer. I just think that, I mean, you as soon as you say that you're an influencer, your career has now started a clock to time out.
Yeah.
It's literally, I'd be curious to note if anybody has been an influencer over any really substantial length of time, like 2 years.
Yeah, right. In other words, fads change, etc.
It's a fad, right? It could be a fad.
I got to tell you, though, really, Chris Knight, looking back at your life, in a way, you were an influencer. I mean, I don't know if you didn't have the necessary the choice of what your clothing was or what your character said, but all of the characters on the Brady Bunch were revered.
Well, absolutely. This is a cast and written influencing platform, television. What's it for? I mean, to sell soap. It's to influence buying of some sort. But at least all arm's length. You're not doing it directly. I mean, to me, it just seems like to have people that will follow you with that kind of fervor, if you're an influencer, you're kind of a cult director. It's the cult of your opinion, which is,
Yeah, and I always thought that would be so hard to keep up with brands and styles because it changes so fast. I mean, to keep up would be a full-time job.
Yeah. I mean, but to be a successful influencer, I guess you have to have everybody coming all the time. So I'm, as much as I'm curious about how you become an influencer, it's like, who are the people that are that influenced by the influencer? Because that's not too different than the cult member.
Yeah, it's true. It all comes around to cults. You see, that's the thing. It all comes around.
We have a desire to herd, to be heard, and to herd like a lemming. Hopefully not off the cliff.
Well, there are leaders, there are followers. Do you know what I mean? There are definitely people born one way or the other.
Yeah, and then there's some of us who like to think we're in between, but I don't know if there is an in between.
When you got the role as Peter Brady, I understood with some of the stuff I've read. By the way, here I have, because my daughter and I are very big fans. My whole family, growing up with the Bradys and everybody else, there's so many people, obviously, that you've got fans of, or that are fans of yours. And we still watch the Brady Bunch every night. It's one of those, it's kind of one of those like, are you kidding? I say to my daughter, she's 15. I'm like, Bama, are you kidding? She's like, nope, Mama, here we go. One more.
Gotta learn this lesson again.
Like, look at all these books we have.
All right, we have Barry's book, Grown Up Brady.
Barry's, which I really enjoyed. And I got this one. Did you see that one?
The way we all became The Brady Bunch, yes. That's probably the newest. Kimberly Potts, right? Yeah.
Kimberly Potts, yeah. And then this one, you read Maureen's.
Yes, I've not yes, I've read it. I've skimmed it.
She's a good writer. She's a good writer, and it moves fast. It's one of the fastest books I ever read. I mean, really. Mine
reads really slowly. I'm still trying to write it.
That's slow. That is slow.
Help us today telling this story.
That's right. That'll make up for some of it anyway. But yeah, so I was going to say that I read somewhere that you weren't as enthused about acting as your parents were, specifically your mom. And I guess you were only 10, so how enthused could you be?
Don't think that they were enthused either. My dad was an actor. This is a good start for my story, because this is where my story is going to come into play.
Okay, well then we're going to shift gears. Then we'll shift gears and we'll come back to that. Okay, here's the question from my daughter and that she has for you. Now, this was the episode with when Cousin Emma, Alice's cousin came, and you had to call her like Sergeant Emma. It was, she was very strict and stuff. So then after Emma leaves and Alice comes back, okay, and this is true because I've seen it now. We've watched this multiple times. Okay, it's first thing in the morning, and Alice marches you guys all out in the morning on top of the staircase. The whole family's there, and Robert Reed says, and maybe you remember this, he says, Alice, it's 6:00 in the fucking morning. Do you remember that?
I don't, but Barry and I are now doing a podcast. Actually, tonight is the 4th episode dropping, and we don't do them in any kind of sequence. So we'll have to do Sergeant Emma, that episode, because I haven't watched it in 40 years, and this is what our podcast then would be about. Right. Endeavoring, firstly, to remember the story behind the shooting, and if it was an episode you weren't in a whole lot, you might have been in school a whole lot, all of those memories kind of compress and dilute. But if you don't have, or if we don't have any memories specific to the shooting of that particular episode, we dive into the episode itself.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm a very concrete, kind of literal person. I watch these episodes cracking up at how many things just are silly, don't work, slapstick, but for a kid, it's fine. And even for an adult watching with the kid, it's fine. But I just sit there going, my God, how did we do that?
The continuity is all over the place.
And two of the episodes, we've recorded about 9 at this point. 2 of those episodes, I could have sworn that in one case it was me, and in another case it was Bob, and I wish I could now remember what the line was, where I thought the same thing. Yeah. And it wasn't in Sergeant Emma. But it wasn't that. That's not what he said. I can't remember what the line was, but I thought he used, I thought he cursed, but of course that wouldn't have made it. And it's another word. We were able to decipher that it was, instead of freak, it's freaking is probably what he said.
Right. Well, when you watch Sergeant Emma, you'll see it. It's at the very end. You're all lined up on the stairs, and it just slips right out. And we wrote it down because we watched it back and forth last night. Alice at 6:00 in the fucking morning. We couldn't believe it. And Bam, my daughter was laughing so hard. We were just, and she was so excited that I was going to talk to you so I could ask you about that. And I have listened to all of the Brady Bros, the new podcast. It's very, very good. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're having a gas doing it. I thought, okay, we'll do this. It's an interesting perspective after learning how much our audience really, from doing the HGTV home renovation show, how much they really wanted to hear us, to know that we're friends. And so I thought, we do a podcast. It's going to show us, talking and reminiscing about our childhood in the way that we speak. And very definitely you can tell that we're friends. So at least as a platform for that, it started. But then the amount of perspective that never was, when you're 9 or 12 years old, you don't ask probing questions. You're not looking insightfully at things. So now when Barry and I talk about things, I am more curious about what his position was.
Sure.
Does he remember looking at that? What did he think at the time? And our views are different because we were different people. We were different ages. And we both have this common foxhole experience. But, the bomb came in, or the incoming was sort of hitting us differently. Yeah. And it's just been a wildly fun experience. So.
Well, Barry Williams was more of an adult on the show, and you were definitely looped in with the kids. So you probably had completely different, you had different teachers on set, right? Did you have different teachers?
We had different teachers, but that was because the welfare worker that was with us all year long, because she was there even in the summertime, our state representative, then was also the teacher when school started, but she was accredited, her teaching credential up to, I believe it was 8th grade. It could have been 7th or 8th. So once you got into the grade beyond that, you had to go to the secondary or high school teacher, and we had another teacher to teach. Barry started 14 to 15, so that's where he always was. Maureen transitioned and I transitioned during the course, and I think Eve even transitioned during the course. You
guys start laughing so hard on the show, on the Brady Bros, because it's so, there were so many funny things, so many inconsistencies, and like how Robert Reed went over to the bar in the living room.
I know.
So will you tell us about that? Because that was so funny.
Okay, what episode was it that we were talking about here? We don't do it in secret. So it was
Peter and the Wolf. Was it Peter and the Wolf?
Peter and the Wolf.
Or the camping one?
I think it's either a Camping We Will Go or Peter and the Wolf. Okay, no, it's got to be. It can't be Peter and Wolf because that's, I think, Peter and Wolf is like 4th year. So this was early, very early. Right. Must have been Camping We Will Go. And
you're one of the very first episodes. First 10.
Right in the foreground of the living room, where sometimes on episodes you would see the family watching a television. You wouldn't see it in the frame, but you'd see them all looking underneath the screen at the television. There was a bar cart that was in the screen in the foreground. And Robert is home, in the afternoon from work, pouring himself a drink. And it even has a plastic stir rod in it, right? No ice. And it wasn't dealt with. It was almost like the actors had the idea, we need something here to be doing, some business. Get a bar cart, put it in here. And before it was widely appreciated how the show should be contained, this slipped in, right? And they got the bar cart. Like if you tried to do that in the 4th year, the prop guy would say, I can't bring in a bar cart. We've all been through this. They got the bar cart in there, and then he's drinking, and it's like so uncharacteristically Brady, but it was early on before Brady was really characterized, right?
Yeah.
So
it was also that era that people did have bar carts.
Absolutely.
Like had full bars in their house.
It makes all the sense in the world. I mean, people, but not the Bradys.
Yeah.
Right. So early on in the first year, before the brakes were, the curbs were set, somebody says, I want some business. How about if I'm pouring myself a drink, and everybody else, okay, we'll get you a bar cart, put it in there before. Everybody was steeped in this kind of lore. Wait a second, we're a kid show. We probably shouldn't be bringing. And it got in because how do you go back and get that? I'm sure standards and practices wanted to cut the whole scene, but you needed the scene for the show. It was a wild moment, and I never remembered that until watching the show again. I mean, I haven't seen, like Sergeant Emma, I haven't seen that show in, it could be 50 years. It might have been that I saw it once when it was on. But it's not like I sit there and I consume the show like our fans do.
Well, if you had children, you would.
Oh, absolutely. If I would, definitely, because it would help babysit them.
Well, it does, because the show, it's like the idea, it's like mesmerizing. Like this, the premises are so simple, and everything is so.
That's why it works.
Right, and it's really about the kids. I think that I think you guys even talked about it in the Brady Brothers, that I think they set it up to be about the adults in the show and this not mixed marriage, but this combining of these two parents. Yeah, blended family. And then it really became about the 6 kids.
Yeah, when they started it, I think it was going to be about how were parents influenced by their children. But we were in the family hour on Friday nights, Do
you remember? It was only mentioned one time that my daughter Alabama and I can figure. It was only mentioned one time when anybody talked about the other parents that were just gone, that were just out of the picture. Do you remember that?
See. I'm learning as I'm going over these episodes. So I don't think they ever dealt. Mike is a widower. So we have a mom who's passed away. That's set up. It wasn't really clear to me what happened to Carol. I thought she, too, was a widow. But Barry recently made the claim that she was, in fact, divorced. And that was part of the story, except for it couldn't be overt. So it was never stated that she had an ex-husband through divorce. Though divorce was becoming more common, it just wasn't talked about. So though I, in my little young mind, discerned that she too must have had a parent who passed away, the genesis of the character starts with the idea that she's a divorcee. And he meets Mike. Well, as a divorcee, there's no husband ever dealt with, ex-husband.
Ever.
Right, like
ever.
He's
now,
dead.
one time in the honeymoon episode, the very first one, I think it was Bobby couldn't sleep. It was Bobby couldn't sleep. And that's when Robert Reed approached him and said, well, Bob, of course you're going to miss her. Something like that.
Right. Your mom.
But as I can recall, that's the only time the kids ever talked about the parents.
Wouldn't have been much of a comedy. And we dealt with the death really seriously. So it's dealt with, and then we move on. Matter of fact, in looking at the shows now with adult eyes, the whole first season, and it makes all the sense in the world when you look at how a series is built. Firstly, they set off on a concept, a pilot. This blended family comes together. Boom. We have these 6 kids. They're the ages. And now you've got a young girl, you've got a young boy, you got an older girl, an older boy, and then you have these 2 in the middle.
Teens,
You're now having writers write to an unseen program. They're going to formulaically put it together. The older boy's problem, the younger kid's problem, cliche kind of problem. A little less clear what the middle child's problem is, except, I guess, that you're always following in your sister's footsteps. But as you watch that first year, there's 2 things that are going on. They're setting the characters based upon this kind of grid pattern, and it's all about the families. The father being accepted by the girls, the mother being accepted by the boys.
The boys,
I know in my life, if I ever had, my parents didn't get divorced until after I was grown, I would have probably said at least once a week, you're not my mom. Yeah. Or you're not my dad.
Exactly.
But we never had to say that.
It was unbelievable. Well, first of all, you had a maid. She was doing a lot of the raising herself, so you had that to think about.
I'm watching these scenes and I'm realizing that Florence is in every scene with Ann cooking. In the last show we did, she was cooking, she was sewing, she was ironing in the kitchen. There was no room to iron, and Ann was just sitting next to her.
There are so many funny moments. Oh my gosh. Let me ask you something. Were the episodes that were as fun for us to watch as fun for you to shoot? And what I mean by that would be like the Kings Island, the Hawaii, the ones that were off stage, as it were, or on location.
Of course. I don't know why our audience, our fans, like the Kings Island one so much, because we just did that one, and there wasn't any plot. We were running around a park giving it cross promotion.
It was like, oh my gosh, they did. When you rewatch,
it was a montage.
That one, you're gonna laugh how much they're just showing aerial views of the park.
It's coming. We did do it. We've recorded it. Yeah, that's all it is. It was, let's see, Taft Entertainment owned, well, somehow they owned the park, or bought the park. Paramount had a big piece of them. Hanna-Barbera was part of that.
Sure.
They would go on to own it completely later, but at the time there was a big business interest. But it was never, the name of the park was never uttered. It was like before people really learned how to cross promote well.
Yeah.
You know, it was like it took 10 minutes before you saw one water flume ride with the name of the park on it. It was almost as though they were trying to prevent you from knowing what park we were at. But I'm thinking, then why are we doing it? I mean, when watching it as an adult, it's like this was a cross promotion. I think the reason it wasn't as much to advertise the park, or there was a bit of that in there. It was to get us into a fun location rather free. I don't know. I really don't know where that came up. But you're right. Hawaii was the best episode because we got to go to Hawaii.
Sure.
And we always worked in a set, very rarely on location. So anytime we got to leave the set, it was special.
Yeah.
But there's other episodes that, for varying personal reasons, became touchstones, important inflection points in growing up. I mean, the worst week of my life was Do Re Mi. I believe it's Do Re Mi. It's a Time to Change.
Yeah, sure.
Because by this point, I became very aware that I couldn't sing, and everybody was doing the sing thing, and I was sort of like baggage and had no talent and didn't want anything to do with it since I know how bad I was. And so then they wrote an episode where I thought they were pointing it out.
Wow.
I thought, let's just can I just own this and just, can we, so the whole week was just, it was so mind-boggling, cathartic for me at 11 or whenever it was.
Sure.
And now I watch it and the show works and it's a funny moment and it's historic at this point. It just goes to show you what you go through personally, the issues that are big in your life that become these moments are sometimes built on sensitivities that others aren't aware of.
Sure.
And we got through it.
What did they do, though, after that? Because then, the whole show took off. You guys did that variety show, and you were truly like a singing group. I mean, there was the album.
Yeah.
And so did they
albums.
have your mic off, or what?
Pretty much. I've never had a solo. I'm pathetic when it comes to music. But it did, I tell you what it did do. It damaged my ability to enjoy music.
Oh, my gosh.
It damaged my wanting to listen to it.
Wow.
So, I mean,
that's so
there are some undesirable repercussions from having been forced into being very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It would be like forcing someone who has no dexterity to join the baseball team.
Sure.
And it's like, it's not for them, right? Just look at that, say, not your thing. So you don't have to do that.
You saw the script before you got to the set. Did you see the script ahead of time that it was going to be singing?
You get it like the day before you start filming, maybe 2 days before. But no one knew at this point how sensitive I was, how frightening singing was to me.
Sure, that's so hard for
sort
a
of like
child.
Public speaking was the same thing, but here I'm acting. But they're different. Yeah. Yeah. But I took it personally, quietly.
Wow.
Like no one really knew what I was going through. So when we do that episode, I will talk about how that was absolutely memorable for me because of the trauma I was going through. Like, again, the adolescent drama behind the scenes of Peter and the Wolf, where I'm, having to act, against women 7 years older than me. I'm only 14. I hadn't even started dating yet. And it was absolutely intimidating.
Yeah, of course, because Peter and the Wolf is one when you guys double dated because the Calderas were in town or something. The Calderons, the family.
Right.
And so you guys take out these two girls, and because the one girl wouldn't go out with Greg unless she had a date for her cousin, and that girl was like a woman, and you were like a boy.
as much as could be on the Brady Bunch, sort of like a sex pot.
Yeah.
Right? Like she was hot in all ways that you would never see normally on the Brady.
Yeah, she had like a Tony Tennille haircut, like the bangs, but she was wearing a halter top.
Right. And back then the pants were very low rise. Yeah, no, it was, for that purpose it worked. I wasn't there yet, personally.
Of course.
So it was difficult, so I had to get through it.
That's very funny. Oh, poor Chris Knight. That's a very funny story. Let me go back real quick to King's Dominion. King's Dominion, right? Or King's Island, right? King's Island. I read Maureen McCormick's book, and I'll tell you why people love that episode. Because she and Eve Plum did not wear bras in that episode.
Running around the park.
And they got away with it that shoot, but never again.
Right.
And she talks about how Sherwood would hug them and touch their bra strap in the back.
Not Sherwood. Let's not put that on Sherwood. That was Lloyd who apparently did that.
Sorry about that. But it wasn't. No, but it wasn't anything like a sexual. He was just checking that the kids were wearing bras because Marsha was like all freewheeling,
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you can bring that up with Barry Williams. He'll probably remember that. Well, listen, I am so happy you're here. We're going to get over your story in 1 second. I wanted to remind you guys that we are playing Story Smash, the storytelling game show, every month at the Hollywood Improv. The next show is Saturday, March 26th. Come on down. It's a Saturday night, 7:30 p.m., Story Smash, the storytelling game show. Chris Knight, you would love it. Go over to storysmashshow.com and check out the game. And then, of course, follow Story Smash over on Instagram at Story Smash. All right, you guys, he's here right now. Chris Knight, you hear him talking. I gotta tell you, you were probably one of the better actors on the show besides the adult.
Oh, you're being way kind now.
You were so
couldn't
awkward.
Speak, and of all the things to see grow and change and blossom was at least my ability to get better at this craft called acting, because I started out, and going back to another moment. So we did Underground movies where Greg makes a Pilgrim movie.
Sure, one of the all-time best episodes, and more snow. I mean, the funniest goddamn thing. First
season, and actually, I think it might be the second season. But I was when I watched the work in the first season, every word is emphasized. It's the strangest vocal. It's like every word has to be focused. Like if you're not sure really what to emphasize, just emphasize everything. Like blurt it out. But that was sort of, the result of me being, as it would turn out, I had, this thing called ADD. I'd find out when I was an adult. But there was really no way to, I was like, what? It's like, had all that energy having come out.
It came across awkward. You were supposed to be awkward, so it played. Honestly, people thought you were just fine, fine.
In the second year, there was us making the movie, and Bobby and Peter are playing, Indians and Pilgrims. And because it's a movie, and what you do when you're a kid and you're acting, you act badly. And what my acting badly sounded just like the way I delivered lines in the first season. It's like, wow, that's what I did in the first season without thinking I was doing it.
I will catch that next time. That's very
so you're
funny.
very kind to say I learned. Lucky me, Sherwood wasn't looking for actors. He was looking for kids who were kids and could be. Now, Barry was a really good actor. Maureen was a really good actor. Eve was a phenomenal actress, and I always really enjoyed Michael's work because Looking Land always busted me up. He had such a natural, good, he would roll with it. Yeah, good-natured, and he just cracked me up. But
great character, great. He had the episode when they dyed the rabbits orange. That was a big episode for him. It was very natural. When you and you took Jan to that party at Lucy Winter's house, and she wore that wig. And then in that episode, when you guys got back to the house, that girl kept hanging on you, Peter, and you go,
Margie Whipple.
I don't want to go Margie. And Robert Reed's like, Peter?
Yeah, you got to go home.
You have to go with the girl.
Yeah.
All the boys and girls are in suits and dresses. So
honorable
funny.
thing, Margie Whipple with her Google eyes at me. Yeah.
That's right. That was very, very
There were
funny.
some fun moments.
No kidding. You guys should follow Chris over on Instagram at Christopher Knight Official. And then also, like I said earlier, Christopher has really turned into this entrepreneur in life. Or not turned into, but that is what you've become. And you've got a tremendous collection of furniture.
I have been very lucky in this. Christopher Knight home is blown up. So
everything. ChristopherKnightBrands.com. You've got bedding. I mean, it's really neat. I love this rug I saw. It's one that looks kind of like splashed, like a Jackson Pollock. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
we have a lot of product, and some is not known particularly well. So it starts just moving in and moving out.
Wow, that's exciting. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Christopher Knight.
All right, so here's my story, and this is a story that changed my life. I was 1966, when my dad got around, because I think he'd been thinking about it for a little bit, maybe waiting until we were appropriately aged, to get an agent to work in show business. And why would that be? Well, because my dad was an actor. My dad was an actor from Broadway, from New York. That's where I was born. And that he had a family in the late 90s was rather frightening, because now he actually had to support a family. And actors that didn't have a family, they could starve by their own choosing, working in theater. But as soon as you had a family, it required you to be a little bit more responsible, perhaps, and as a consequence of that, relinquish your sense of art, because he felt that all real artists worked only on stage, that were actors, that movies and television especially were not real acting.
You must have loved Robert Reed then, as a Shakespearean actor.
And so my dad had a lot in common with Bob. And a viewpoint that I would learn later as an adult that was similar to Bob's conundrum with the Bradys, which is I understand his problem well now as an adult, looking at what we had to do, especially knowing that he had just come off of Barefoot in the Park and was supposed to do Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park as a series, and at the last minute they decide not to go into series with him, but with Scully Mitchell. They went with an African-American cast, and in return for taking Barefoot in the Park from Bob, gave him the Brady Bunch. Those are totally different worlds, and it would turn out that as frustrating or as unsatisfying as maybe the artistic work was, it became wholly satisfying, as we would learn, for him to have us as sort of a surrogate family, because he was a wonderful role model and protector, guider, an influencer of ours growing up. And to know how reluctant he was coming on into it only makes that journey all the more special. Any case, so my dad, being an actor from New York, and needing to now put food on the table for his growing family, me and an older brother, 13 months older than I was, decide to visit his family, 1959, for Thanksgiving. We drive cross country
Wow.
The highway system isn't even complete at the time. And the idea was he had an agent in Los Angeles, an office in Los Angeles, an office in New York, and now he would go out to LA because there was this new kind of work for actors that you could be excused if you were a real actor in doing when you had a family, but it was called television. And it was based mostly in the West Coast, and so there was some work out there, and perhaps he would do two things. Drive to Thanksgiving, where his parents had moved to get out of the cold, and they were retired at that point, and see what work was available for an actor. And we never went back. We ended up staying in California. And my dad then was represented on the West Coast trying to get gigs in television. There wasn't really any theater to speak of, though he would later make changes to that because he was vitally important in the growth of what they call Equity Waiver Theater in Los Angeles. He started it. Matter of fact, got thrown out of Equity because he produced himself in shows. To be the equivalent of off Broadway in Los Angeles, again, nothing in the early 60s that was there for actors to work on in stage, though there was all this television work. So, being that he himself was the first generation in this country of his family was all very old, Middle European, old school. And kids worked to help support the family back in the old world. And to a degree, back in New York, he was born and raised in Brooklyn, where there were opportunities to have your kid work somewhere, for a friend or whatnot, and put their kids to work. He had that in the back of his mind for us, but now he's an actor, and one of the best ways for young talent to get started is just knowing somebody that knows where the agent is that represents kids, because it's not as though when you knock on a kid's agent door, they're looking for a long resume when you're 7 years old. They know that there's no resume to be had. They just look at the kid and wonder whether or not he'll clam up or open up when he gets inside of the room to interview, to audition. And so there's no barrier to entry. The real barrier to entry is just living in Los Angeles and having somebody who knows the ropes, knows that there are agents that represent kids. And my dad knew that, got us an agent. And again, I think he'd been thinking about it for quite some time. And I was believe about 7 to 8 years old when we first got that agent. And my brother, again, he's a little over a year older than me, got the agent at the same time. So we were both represented. We both went on every interview together. And I immediately started to work, and my brother never worked.
Wow.
Nonetheless, it wasn't something
Did either of you want it, or?
No, I'm 7 years old. He's 8 years old. And it was just something that my mom said that we're going to get an agent. No, I didn't, I had no idea that you could write to somebody. You watch this television thing and there were actual people that played those roles. And when I started receiving fan mail, it was like, wow, these people I never even thought about that, but if you like somebody, they're actually alive. You parked yourself in front of this thing, you stared at it for a while, you laughed where appropriate, and then you went off and you played with your friends or did something else or got called to dinner. There was no consciousness in my mind about the whole apparatus. So when she said we're going to, get an agent and then you're going to go on some interviews and maybe you'll work. Oh, okay, Mom. I know what that meant. All I knew is I hated the interviews. We lived out in the West San Fernando Valley. And even then it took an hour to get into Hollywood where the interviews were. And when I'd get home from school, if my mom was dressed up, then I was not, whatever plans I made at school that day with my friends were going to, not come to fruition because I was getting in the car and driving to an interview and then driving home. And, so that would be my afternoon, 2.5 hours in the car with my mom smoking with the windows up.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, right.
Well, the other alternative was to breathe the air of LA at the time. Yeah. So neither were right.
That's so true.
Good. So the idea of starting as an actor wasn't mine, was my parents, but not to start a career necessarily. My dad's understanding was maybe you'll be able to put some money away for your own education because, money was hard to come by. We were living very lean. My dad having, other jobs, odd jobs, as actors do to survive, looking for the break to come. So I immediately started working and then started going on interviews for roles where I had to speak because most of the work that I'd gotten literally immediately were commercials with no dialogue. And speaking
just eating cereal or something.
Yeah, sliding into home base, being the dirty kid that gets cleaned up. And I worked constantly for those first 2 years. This is 66, 67, and then going into 68. There are, I don't know, umpteen interviews that I went on in that time that I have no recollection of, right? When people ask me about your first interview for the Brady Bunch, I don't remember it. I don't remember because it was like every other interview you went on. You forgot about it as soon as you left the door. If it happened to be one that you got, there might be a memory of doing the project because then there's something really tangible that permeated your memory. Otherwise, it was just another day in a car. So I do remember having a test of some sort, but it wasn't really a screen test. I don't believe it was in front of a camera, and it was a personality test, and more or less going into, I believe it was Sherwood's office. It's all very vague because I don't remember it at the time. I just remembered it after the, hearing that I got the role. Then, that's where, and I believe it was only 2 interviews. I think it was, might have been the third. 3 interviews, and then, finding out you got the job. And I always loved getting the job because it was like you were a success. It's that feeling, that you won.
Well, that's the reward, that's the reward. The work is all that driving.
Yeah, exactly. When your heart's not into it, all it really is you're going to make friends, but it could be an intimidating. And like the first day I remember in the first commercial driving up, it's like, I had no idea what to expect or what was expected of me, And the first job I had was a Mannix episode and I had to speak. I had no idea where my line came.
Aww.
I was like, my line was, I had a few, but one of them was, it's my magic rock. So, I don't know. I think my mom showed me the script. This is the scene we're doing, and it's the scene that says it's my magic rock, and I'm holding the rock, and I don't know if I even said the line in the right spot. It just seemed like it was the right response to whatever was being asked of me at the moment.
It was
so like my
cute.
And I have no idea.
Kids can be so truthful because they don't know what the hell's going on, so they just respond, and that's acting. Listening and responding.
Much to the detriment of the other actors, if you're just winging it. Right? Poor Mike Connors, and it was Fell, Norman Fell was the other actor in the scene who would go on to play Mr. Roper, right?
Of course.
So
he was a great actor.
And so I learned piecemeal, okay, now how do when do I come in? What do I do? Where do I go? What blocking is? I mean, none of that. No, I didn't go to any school. For no kid does. You just kind of pick it up on the spot.
Sure.
But a lot of interviews. Hated the interviews. Had to be on them all the time. So. In this arc, I probably went on 100 pilot auditions or so, and you don't get them all, like they say. There was the Brady callback, which is always good. Callbacks are good because normally, that means you're getting closer. And then a test is something other again. And I'm 8 years old. It's 68. It's summer of 68. My dad was always looking for theater jobs. Got hooked up with the Old Globe Theater Company down in San Diego, and they have a Shakespeare festival every summer. And for a couple of summers, it might have been 2 prior to this summer of 68, he worked over the summer down at the Old Globe Festival. And it was like a 6-week run, doing 3 different plays. And they put him up in San Diego's beautiful, a little hotel or like a little condo, or what wasn't condos at the time, an apartment. And there was, I don't even know if it was big enough for a family of now 5 people, but it didn't matter. We lived like that anyway. So if it was a 1-bedroom apartment, we were all going for a week, to visit Dad down in San Diego and enjoy some beach life and fun,
Sure.
And I've got this kind of burgeoning career going on, and we're down in San Diego having a great old time. My dad, though, was like in his DNA is he's a bargainer, right? He wants to negotiate. He just must have been very frustrated when things had a price tag on them, and that meant the price that they were to be sold for, because his instinct was to negotiate on everything. So Tijuana was a wonderful place.
Sure.
And when he's in San Diego, he's very close to Tijuana. And that meant, you got inexpensive this, that, and the other, whether it be an onyx carved chesset you don't need, or other things, because it might save $5 on it, and you could probably get it for 50 cents, when you're good at this haggling stuff that my dad was so good at. So from buying alcohol cheaply and bringing it back illegally across the border with us, whatever it was, just getting anything at a bargain price was just such a thrill for him. This summer, when we went down and visited him in San Diego, I had already gone on my Brady interviews and whatnot, and then now I'm down in San Diego. My dad goes down to Tijuana like every Monday, picking up terracotta pots. And when we go down to visit him, there's all these terracotta pots and sort of outside the apartment, inside the apartment. And we always had a really small Datsun station wagon, which wasn't even yet Nissan. It was Datsun. It was micro mini thing that we all, now 5 of us, drove around in. And my dad had multiple trips down to Mexico buying these terracotta flower pots and tree pots and plant pots, and because I guess they were a great deal.
And he's going to resell them?
He's going to bring them home. So my dad is asked by my mom, how do you expect to get the family home with the pots? Because he's, I guess we're there at the end of his run or somewhere near it, and he didn't really think about that. He's like, oh yeah, what am I going to do? I don't have room for the pots and the family. I'm going to have to and probably don't even have just room for all the pots. I probably have to make a couple trips. So we have our aunt, his sister, living in our house, taking care of our dog at the time. And my dad calls her to let her know that, doesn't mean to surprise her, but he's got to come home early to bring and drop off some pots, so that, letting her know. And she says, oh, good, I'm glad you called. Chris has a screen test for this thing called the Bradley Brood, and it wasn't even the Brady Bunch at the time. And my dad goes, oh, well, I'll bring him back with me then. I'll stick him in the pods in the car and take him on his screen test. And I always thought that was, a remarkable kind of stroke of luck. If my dad didn't have this penchant to have to get pots that causes the family, and my mom wasn't, my mom was livid, absolutely livid at him for doing this, just simply because it was like, what kind of forethought was there? Nonetheless, his pot buying, his fondness for terracotta at a deal is the reason that I end up on the show that we all know as the Brady Bunch.
Wow.
Just the little things, the silly little things that can change the course of history.
Because if he hadn't called, first of all, he wouldn't have called. He wouldn't have called her. He wouldn't have called his sister, because
we didn't have a phone.
Yeah,
it wasn't like there was cell phone, so she couldn't call us.
And that screen test, you just wouldn't have gone, and another kid would have stepped in. Of course.
It would have been somebody else who got the role. Because I just wouldn't have been there.
Right.
I mean, you can't, at that point in your life, it's not like you're going to stop everything, every interview. If you wanted to say, listen, I'm only going to go down to San Diego when there won't be an interview, you'd never go down to San Diego.
Right.
So, and that's part of the trauma of any mom who thinks their kid is cute. Let's get them an agent and send them on, all these auditions. Is there another kid in the family? How are they going to feel about it? Because now if that becomes all important, then everybody's life is impacted by that choice. In our family, it was, we'll get the jobs that we get. And if we miss some jobs, we miss some jobs. It wasn't like it was a career path.
Well, your dad, at least your dad had kind of a semblance of what that world was. So you saw him kind of, navigating and missing opportunities or not getting jobs. And then you were able to do that. So that's, it's a pretty good way to be in show business.
The best way to be in show business is to treat it like a hobby.
Yeah, you were kind of oblivious.
You can take it as it comes and enjoy it. And the seriousness of life and supporting oneself is sort of brushed aside because that pressure can destroy art, Well, it really can because and you have no say. It's so subjective when they choose who they choose. And so when you get rejected over and over, you put it on yourself like you must have done something. But meanwhile, it never might have mattered. It's not your choice. And you can't say, well, let's make this one because there were so many that you made that you didn't get. What's the difference? I missed this one, not gonna, no big deal. So you give yourself the latitude to miss certain things. But in this particular case, the Brady Bunch was not missed by this much.
Amazing. Was your dad ecstatic about your career, or how were your parents regarding your career when they, it was 5 seasons? How did they feel about it? It kept getting renewed.
There was so much angst and tumult in our family just to survive that part of the benefit was that there was some money. Not that my mom worked as my manager, so she took a cut of what I made, and that supplemented my dad's income. So we were able to eat and survive, possibly in part because of my ability, to work.
You had your own Coogan account, right? Like they couldn't touch your money, as it were.
But you think, what is a Coogan account is set up when you're signing a contract. And the only time you're not signing a contract, a big contract, you're doing a commercial. It's not like it's an ongoing thing. So most of the money that I ever made was in commercials, not from the Brady Bunch, not at least initially. So that wasn't covered by any, Coogan account. There was, and the Coogan account is only like 20% of your income is set aside.
That is safe from your, and that was from like an old law from a kid named Jackie Coogan.
Right. So that your parents couldn't use all your money. They put some away for you. They're forced to put it away in an account. But again, it's only 20% of that contract. So of the Brady contract, 20% had to be put away. But all this other work, all episodic work, if you did a movie, if you did, commercial after commercial after commercial, which, they can be very lucrative, the commercials. There's no such, account for those. Right.
Yeah, that sucks.
You were asked a question, I didn't answer it completely. So my mom, interestingly, I was this really shy kind of introvert. My brother was more of the outgoing person.
Yeah, so how did he manage? That's what I wanted to know.
He managed just fine because he hated going on the interviews. So as soon as he decided after 2 years of going on them and never working, I'm not going on any more interviews. And she said, fine. She recognized the futility there. But she never really understood because she didn't get to go into the interview. She sat in the waiting room.
Yeah.
What must have happened in there? Because she, from her experience, the one that should have gotten the work was him, because she couldn't get a word out of me. It might have been our tussle, our own, our dance that, I was reluctant with her, and he was the firstborn. I was reluctant because he got all this extra, not stuff, but just just something, magic, energy,
like not talent, but more of a like
patience. It's care. Clearly. We were all accidents. She wanted one child, and she ended up with a family. And she would admit that later in life, and so she really didn't know how to handle all of us in light of the desperate, monetary realities.
So when you went to set, was that a respite, like to get to set?
Oh my God! And not only was it a respite, it gave me a place where I was important. Right? I mean, not only, I remember vividly the episode Martinelli's Bike Shop where I get fired. Robert Reed was the director. Wow. And it didn't dawn on me in the moment exactly what it was I was going through, but I look back on it and realize it immediately. But I remember the emotional response to it was, even as, star of a show when you're a kid, it's, our directors had, little time to get things done. There's a lot of us in the scene, so they kind of lined us up, like in order, and did things, you stand here, you stand here, you stand here, and we'll shoot the scene. This is unrealistic as it might be in real life. It's what we always had to do. I remember coming in the first day to work with Bob, and I was excited about that because I love Bob. And he said, so Chris, what do you see going on here? How do you see this working? And it was like, wow, he's asking me. And I always had ideas, right? I remember, to give you an idea of where I learned that you got to speak up sometimes, that you can be helpful, there was a line, we're in a hurry. Now, I'm from New York, right? But I was only 2 when we left, but my parents had that kind of, at times, enunciation that was very New York. I didn't, but hurry wouldn't come out right. I could say hurry, but as soon as the cameras rolled and the nerves were, it would hurry, cut, and it was like eight takes, and it was like they're driving everybody nuts. One word, and I know I can say it, but as soon as I'm in the scene and in the role, it comes a hurry, and it's like I don't know what's going on.
Wow.
So I said, "Can I say rush?" Just to solve the problem for myself, and they were just like, "Yeah, say rush." And it was like, I'm going, why didn't they think of that? What I realized at that moment is like, you probably have ideas that are valid, but I was prone at that point to wait for someone to request it as opposed to forcing it out. But Bob was asking it right from the get-go, and it was like, wow.
What a great guy.
He validated you, and that wasn't something, I mean, obviously, as I thought back on it, that I was longing for at home, because it was all survival. Mm-hmm. There was, you were more a cause of irritation and or you're a problem versus any part of the solution.
Children should be seen and not heard. That's the bottom line. You
have wants and needs. We have nothing to give.
That's right.
So
it was just about these are the rules, and then you're going to get yelled at. That's about it. So I kind of, because I grew up the youngest of 6, so that's kind of funny. That was also my attraction, and all of my siblings. I have 4 sisters and a brother, and that was sort of our attraction to the Brady Bunch as well. And to us, of course, to everybody, it was so idyllic. The Jack and Jill bathroom. That it was just also like they all hold their own beds. I didn't have a bed. My sister didn't have a bed. We slept on the fold-out couch.
Wow.
And on the Brady Bunch, like their clothes, and then of course they had a maid. Yes, we know this. And so it was just like such perfection, as a kid to see that, it was just such so alluring.
Well, it's aspirational. So you're telling it from the story from a family who might have been similar in structure, but certainly the socioeconomic part wasn't there. Nonetheless, through the Brady's eyes and the kinship, because the show is about kids and it's about community. that we call home. The first place you as an individual learn to adapt and belong. And the Brady's is about belonging, and that's a safe landing spot, to know that you belong. And I always felt going into work, in retrospect, now looking at it, that I had a place to belong, and I had less of a place to belong at home. So it created, a reprieve from this outright survival that would have occurred at home. And as I joked earlier, writing my book is still taking forever. That was going to be the theme of it.
It has to be. No, it has to be.
It's my accidental life. My accidental life is what it would have been.
Because it's so, you've evolved, and it's so amazing where you ended up. I mean, it's just, and it's, the whole Brady Bunch thing. Not only the specials, the weddings and the reunions, and then you guys just did the big HGV thing. So it's been such a neat way to see, especially the 6 kids, which the show was about. All 6 of you still like talking to each other, hanging out. It's so normal. It's really great.
It's kind of like if the Truman Show had no wall.
Yeah.
And your America just got to watch you live over time, and that's kind of the arc. I mean, it's like now we're adults looking back on our childhood as we do the podcast, and there are other adults who grew up with us that when we reminisce are reminiscing along with us, and now who have kids who get to intersect their parents' life, on something that they enjoyed as kids.
Exactly.
So
it's common ground.
A common ground.
Listen, when they did that Brady renovation thing, and then they had this contest that if you sent in a video, then you might be able to spend the night in the Brady house and all that. And my daughter was only like 11 at the time, and she made this video. It's only like a minute and a half long. It's very short. But she got costumes to look like each one of you and wore these little costumes. And,
how adorable.
Oh my gosh, so cute. I'm going to send it to Kara because you'll really get a kick out of it.
Do I want to watch it. I know that they were overwhelmed with these submissions, and I can't, I remember meeting the individual. They did have us congratulate them. And then they had to live in a house with no television, barely any running water for a week or however long.
I wonder what they did. That must have been fun for them. Good for them. Good for them. Well, I'm really happy about your podcast, The Brady Brothers. It's very funny.
It's the real Brady Bros, because apparently there's some other Brady Bros out there. So we're the real Brady Bros.
The real Brady Bros. It really is. It's fun to listen to. You guys laugh, and then I'm laughing at home. Okay, wait. Alabama has got to say hi to you, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Hello, Alabama.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Thank you. Your mom's going to share a very special video you created. I'm told. Your submission. Yes, I want to see you as Peter.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Did you dress up as all 6?
Yes, I still have most of the costumes.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your love and support.
Bye. Boy, oh boy, does she have a story to tell at school tomorrow?
Yeah, she does. I just found my mom in the closet.
This is her closet. Am I a bad mom?
Mom gets in there all the time.
I don't want my clothes out of the closet. I have to hang up my clothes. So I just took over my daughter.
This is the beginning of a Brady episode. Like, you're overhearing somebody talking about my mom keeps going in and out of my closet. She almost lives in the closet.
How about real quick, we got to wrap this up, but how about also the one when, it was like the haunted house one and the ghost came down? I remember seeing that for the first time. I'm like 4 or 5. I'm a child. But I remember that was so scary to us. Like, that was so well done. We were so excited.
This stuff can't work for an adult. It works for kids. To tell you the truth, one of the most pleasing moments of my boyhood was getting Maureen dirty. with the help of the special effects department.
In the volcano one.
Making a volcano that just spit mud all over her because she was the prissiest, cleanest person on the planet. And that they would write that in
right.
for her to get dirty and for me to make her dirty was absolute, perfection. And they knew my personality.
It was a funny episode because the little girls that she was with were all bitchy, and then she got to stand up to them, and just to see all the little girls dressed up, it seemed like so fancy, and as a child watching, it really seemed okay. I buy it. I buy that, and I buy that, and I buy that volcano, and then you kept repeating your lines there. Remember? And love is going to ooze all over it.
Right.
It's going to do this and that. And there were 3 sentences you kept.
I kept telling everybody about my volcano that was going to,
yeah.
And then it did.
Good
it splattered mud all over the place. So
you guys, you've got to follow Chris over there on Instagram at Christopher Knight Official. And then also check out his line of everything
really
at ChristopherKnightBrands.com. Very exciting. I'm very happy for you. Really. What an exciting life you're leading, you led. And the fact that you can look at the Brady Bunch and, take it for the levity that it is and still share these moments with Barry and everyone else. It's just got to be, it's really exciting for you. I'm really happy for you.
It's, I've been blessed.
Real quick, remember when Mike Lookaland, his brother would act in the show sometimes.
He was in Kelly Kids, an episode of the Brady Bunch in the 5th season when we were all getting too old to play kids anymore. There was this neighbor who had, 4 kids, and one of those children was Mike's brother. In real life.
Right. That episode was so racist when you look at it now, because the old lady next door comes up to the steps and she rings on the doorbell and, Mike Brady opens the door and she's like, I understand you have an Oriental boy. No, you didn't say that. I mean, it's just... Yeah. So humorous. That was the time. When we watch the Brady Bunch, if you fail to see or think that we haven't made any progress, because even in the Sweet Brady world, there are things today you couldn't do because we have seen fit to make people feel more included. Could you not show a toilet? Was that the thing, or did they just not want to clutter
before 9 p.m., you couldn't show a toilet. And I don't think after 9 p.m. with somebody on it, you couldn't show that. But no, you couldn't show just a toilet before 9 p.m. I don't know why that is an important thing not to show. Everybody sees one. And nobody is offended by it being in your house, right? Oh, you left your bathroom door open. I saw that.
What is that? Porcelain chair.
I think what it is, it's like, let's not even go there. No toilets, whatever. You know. So, and the fact is, if you're in a bathroom and you don't see a toilet, it's probably assumed that it's behind a closed door somewhere. And so we didn't have toilets.
Yeah, but they had a lot of scenes in that bathroom, and it was so clear.
More room for us, the 6 of us, without a toilet.
That's right. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for tuning into Storyworthy. Don't forget to follow me over there as well on all the socials at Storyworthy. And one more time, on behalf of the very talented Chris Knight, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Christine, thank you very much. I've had a gas. It's been a pleasure.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.